So, about a week ago now, me and my girl got into a little bit of a tiff. That's normal for pretty much any relationship. You're always going to have your ups and downs, la di da. To me, that's not exactly a big deal. What made it a big deal, however, was I've got my own mental issues, I've got my own triggers, got my own baggage and junk. And she's got her own triggers and her own baggage and junk. Now, I think we've both kind of been able to talk things out enough that we both recognized our own parts. I'm not really going to talk about her part too much. Does she have some blame and culpability? Yeah, anybody does that gets into these things. It takes two to tango, you know? But I'm going to talk about my part in it because, quite frankly, that's what I'm still dealing with. I was stupid. I got angry and I smashed a glass terrarium in the backyard of a rental property. Yeah. So, at this point, even if my girl did want me back in, which she sort of does and sort of doesn't, she needs the help. I'm here now because she was admitted to the hospital about 24 hours ago. She's doing good. But everybody else was freaking out when it initially happened because she's going into a seizure right there on the street. Nobody really knows how to deal with seizures today. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's like somebody lighting their hair on fire and then dancing around and hooting to try to put it out. Nobody's making any sense. Me, on the other hand, I've dealt with many different situations where people have had seizures and other sorts of fits ever since I was in elementary school. I went through special ed, and so it was a very small class. Most of my main intelligence was ignored in these classes because they're dealing with a lot of people that really don't have that much there. One of the things that I will have to note is each and every single one of these idiots had a spark of genius in them, and I wish I'd had a chance to work with them, because as well-meaning as those teachers were, and I loved the teachers that I had when I was in elementary. Miss Mager, I don't know if you're still out there, but blessed be. You helped me a lot. All right, back on track. So, here I am now. I've smashed the terrarium. I've gotten kicked out of the place where I did have to stay. My stupidity. I'll roll with the punches. I'll face the music. No worries. Besides, for whatever reason, getting out there and being on the street as much as I have been has given me a chance to help out the people that I know are out there. I know when there's food being served. I know where the food's being served. I know where to get other necessities that you might need. I'll go out of my way and collect some of it. I mean, I only have a backpack, so I've got limited space, but I'll collect some of these things and, try to get it to the people that need it. I don't go and just grab random stuff. It's stuff that I think I remember somebody saying something about this. Hopefully I'll bump into them again. I walk for miles. It sounds exhausting, and it is, and I love it. I'm crazy like that, what can I say? I get to meet all sorts of people right there on the street. I get to see their struggle. I get to recognize how my struggles are similar, if not the same. And I've had to make it very clear, look, I don't know your particular situation, but here's what I do know. It's called giving people perspective. Something that a lot of people actually reject. You start talking about a completely different perspective, and most people switch off nowadays because theirs is the only perspective that counts. Theirs is the only perspective that matters to them. And this is talking about people who are actually good people. You know, they don't realize what they're doing. One good example of that is, a neighbor over here that I pissed off, and I can't blame him. I deserve every bit of it. I'm not knocking him in any way, shape, or form. He's a good elderly gentleman that, quite frankly, he was probably just trying to protect my girl from me. He doesn't know everything about me, and there's way too many times where a couple gets into it and somebody gets hurt. So, again, I really don't blame him. Not one bit. But one of the things that I want to highlight is he had his views set on what he thought was there. And he wound up making things worse because he didn't realize what buttons and triggers had been pushed within me to make me go off the way I did. Now, I am aware of my triggers and buttons to a large degree. I'm not going to say all of it. You're not going to be aware of all of it. It's an impossibility. You change too quick. You're adaptive. You move. It's not necessarily a physical movement, but you move. So, getting back to, I guess, what I was trying to say is, you have a lot of really, really good people out there that are just ignorant in certain aspects of life that they need to be paying attention to, but have been trained not to. This is a very difficult situation for anyone. Anyone. For me, it's quite a bit more so because I'm actually dealing with more mentally, emotionally, spiritually than 90% of the world around me. I'm not going to say I'm dealing with more issues of trauma. I definitely have my fair share. I'm not saying I'm not traumatized. I'm not saying I'm somehow perfect. But I haven't had to go through a lot of the different types of traumas that I've sat and listened to. I haven't had to deal with a persistent and consistent threat to my safety and well-being. My mental well-being, my emotional well-being, that's a little bit different. But, my physical safety and well-being, I've never really needed to worry about. I feel blessed that way, and I want to recognize that. And I know there's a lot of real hardcore individuals out there. And I want to give a shout out to my friend the Bum. I don't care how pissed off you get at me. I don't care how much of a jackass I look like to you. You're still my brother. And I hope that's taken as a compliment and not an insult. Anyway, Our biggest issue as a human race right now is our persistence in remaining ignorant to important aspects of anything we're looking at. Simply because we're looking at it, we make a decision, that's the way it's got to be. So if I walk out and I see somebody beating up on somebody else and I just start hauling off on them and beating the shit out of them instead, I feel justified. Now, my question is, what precipitated that? How did it get to that point? Did I just make the situation worse or better? And how do you get what I'm trying to say here? We've got everybody and their freaking dog trying to load up on guns because they're so afraid of their neighbor. And not a single one of you has paid attention to the fact that that's what the government and religion want you to do. Divide yourself. This is a conquering tactic. This is a long-term tactic. This is being done by somebody who does not die so quickly somehow. Think about that. Now, what this means to us is government and religion are not directly responsible for the manipulation. It is the tool of manipulation. So, I mean, yes, it looks like it's directly responsible, which technically, I guess, it sort of is. But nobody knows what they're doing. None of it. You can go to a 33rd degree Mason, and for all the knowledge and wisdom that that individual would have, and they do, they haven't the foggiest clue what they're doing. They're toying with aspects they haven't the foggiest clue about. And I'm saying this with authority because I see a lot of things. People have tested me on this. Now, I can't answer your questions. You need to watch. I've stated many times how I utilize a form of subconscious awareness. Let's put it that way. I like to compare it to the double slot experiment, where if you're focused on one thing, like right now, this picture is focused on me. That's a particle. If you cease to be aware of a single point, your awareness becomes a waveform function. This is important. This is your power. A lot of things are getting ready to happen in the very near future. A lot of people are going to be feeling really stupid about themselves as well. One of the things I want to point out, Jesus has been here for 2,000 years, watching the whole silly game, watching everybody feed into the very things that put him up on the cross, and then worshiping his death, even though he said very plainly that you need to be focused on his life. Why is 1/3 of his life not even in the Bible? Let's see if people start asking questions, okay? I'm tired of trying to point out how your heartfelt belief is wrong somehow just to be attacked by the person I'm trying to help. Now, I understand the attack. It feels like a personal attack. I am putting into question something that a majority of the time somebody has put life and limb out there and sacrificed for and scringed for and fought for such a long time. Quite frankly, you can compare that to the same kind of love that somebody who's been kidnapped gets for their kidnapper after they've been stuck for so long. Same mentality. I'm telling you, you've been played. I'm not trying to make anybody out to be a bad guy. I'm trying to point out the bad situation that the people have made. I am convinced that even the worst person out there is good somewhere if you can find it. And this goes back to a passage in the Bible. Ooh, I use the Bible. Wow. There's a time and place for everything. To elaborate, everything put in its time and place, proper time and place and portion and manner, is good. I don't care what it is. I mean, literally. I have found people who have somehow made it so that for whatever situation they were in, rape was a good thing. Am I going to say go out there and rape? Hell no! Because I wouldn't want it done to me. But this puts a new perspective on things. Everybody that is sitting there pointing out specific actions and saying, this is a sin towards God. You have no clue what you're talking about. There's nothing to, there's no background to it. You have no, what's the word? It starts with a C. I'm sure somebody out there screaming it at me right now. This is the word, Goofy. Anyway. No context, thank you. I don't know who got that through, but thank you. What we really need to start focusing on is figuring out the proper context of everything that we see. We're so busy running around believing that we know the context and making judgments before we have actually ever know anything, that we're actually destroying ourselves without even realizing it. Everybody who's in a position right now where they feel comfortable is doing something to prevent at least two others from having the same comfort. And it's being ignored. It's not something that's going to be easy to find. You've got to look for it. When you're doing stuff and not really paying attention to what that stuff is doing to the world around you, you're really doing much more damage to yourself than you realize. I bought a house. Good for you. How many people are without houses because somebody bought a house for twice what it's actually worth and made it so that the market value goes up? You're being played. You're destroying your own country by doing what you're told is the right thing. You go out there and you confront somebody who is a druggie or a hooker or an alcoholic. How can you be doing this to yourself? Okay, hold on. Let's take a really good look at the effect something like that would have on the target, which is supposed to be being helped. But what good are you actually doing? Now, I'm not going to knock it all the time. Some people need to be yelled at. And they'll come back to you later and they'll say, you know what, I needed that kick in the pants. So I can't say it's always wrong. You got to figure it out for yourself, and you're going to make mistakes, and you're expected to make mistakes, but you're supposed to learn from the mistakes you make instead of ignoring them and going on down the road so that you can feel more self-secure and proud of what you've done. You're not supposed to feel proud of what you've done. Can you? Sure. It's a side effect. It can be a good thing. It's meant to be. But the pain's also meant to be a good thing. It's warning you. It's trying to show you something. And the longer you ignore it, the worse it's going to get. And that's really the key to all the problems that we're having right now. All the problems you're having right now. if you don't start figuring out how to do to people the same things you'd want done to you in their position, you're missing it completely. The instant you say, well, I'll never be in that position, you're missing it. That's your pride talking. All love, all peace. Rising Angel signing off.